Seriously, how long are you planning to stay at the headquarters? You don't even have a desk and just run around the office. There's no place for a high school grad like you here. When I opened the door to the CEO's office, I was surprised to find Amy, the department head, sitting in the absent CEO's chair with an air of arrogance. She graduated from Harvard and always looked down on me, flaunting her education. No, Amy, the chair you're sitting in is actually mine. What? Are you talking nonsense? Have you gone crazy from not fitting in at the headquarters? No, I mean it. The chair you're sitting in, the CEO's chair, is mine. Can you move out of the way? After this, she is left slumped on the floor of the CEO's office when she discovers the truth. Her life was about to hit rock bottom. My name is Kevin Johnson. I was raised by a single mother after my parents divorced shortly after I was born. Their separation wasn't due to a bitter fight, but more because of differing values, so our relationship wasn't too strained. Even after the divorce, my dad continued to pay child support and we met regularly. He was a hard-working man and started talking to me about his job when I entered middle school. Eating the slightly fancy meals he treated me to, I thought to myself as a child that a lot of things can happen in a company. That also sparked my interest in joining the workforce. Gradually, I began to consult my dad about life's decisions. He was like a reliable figure, watching over me from a distance. After graduating high school, I joined a trading company. I consulted my dad about whether to go to college. I didn't have a specific field I wanted to study at that time. When I discussed this with my dad, he advised me to start working first. He had worked after middle school, experienced various jobs, and only then went to college. You'll only understand the real enjoyment of college after working and realizing what you need and what studies will enhance your skills, he advised. Besides, college tuition isn't cheap. It would be a waste to go without a clear goal. He generously offered to pay for my college if I ever decided to go, so I chose to enter the workforce first. I was assigned to a local branch of the trading company, which had a great atmosphere. The branch office had a great atmosphere, and although I had to work late every day to complete unfamiliar tasks, I never had any difficulties with relationships at all. Being in my teens with plenty of energy, over time felt like being in a club activity and wasn't too hard. Every day was stimulating, full of new things to learn and understand. I felt grateful for following my dad's advice, thinking I might have just drifted along in college. As I worked, I found one thing after another that I wanted to learn. For instance, our company often dealt with overseas transactions. This made me want to learn more French, or even other languages such as Spanish or Chinese. Although I was in sales and not heavily involved in overall company management, I aspired to understand the financial statements of our company and those of our clients. This interest led me to contemplate studying accounting and business management. Whenever work ended early, I spent time reading introductory books I bought from bookstores. During those fulfilling days, I reached my 6th year in the workforce. That year, a new female employee joined the company. Her name was Amy. Apparently, she was a returnee from abroad and had graduated from Harvard University. Moreover, her parents were a diplomat and a translator. Naturally, she was a bilingual, indispensable for our trading company. She was what you'd call a well-educated lady from a privileged background. Amy was as competent as the rumors had suggested, but she always seemed in a hurry, as if under pressure. It was like she had unknowingly labeled herself as someone who must excel. She was apparently polite to the employees around her, but I was a little wary because I felt that there was something hidden somewhere in her tone of voice that was condescending to them. My caution proved right when Amy's attitude towards me changed drastically one day. It was the day she learned I was from a single-parent family and only a high school graduate. Suddenly, Her eyes turned cold, and she said, "Oh, you are from a single-parent family, and just a high school grad. How did you even get into this company? Was it through connections or something?" Despite being from Harvard and bilingual, Amy was still a junior colleague to me. I didn't want to lose my temper with her, so I brushed off her remarks and let it slide, though I was surprised she dared to say that to me. After that incident, Amy's language skills and negotiation prowess were recognized, and she was soon transferred to the headquarters. Of course, she didn't leave a good impression on me, but she probably didn't care. Once Amy moved to the headquarters, peace returned to the branch where I worked. I enjoyed my daily work in a good environment. By this time, I had gotten used to my job, and my overtime hours had decreased. I was thinking about going to a university, maybe through online courses or night classes, while continuing to work. So, I kept turning down offers to transfer to the headquarters. However, around my 10th year with the company, I could no longer refuse the transfer to headquarters. Saying goodbye to everyone at the branch who had nurtured me for 10 years, I got a bit emotional recalling a good and tough time since my high school graduation. Everyone at the branch was crying too, making me realize how great the environment had been. After the farewell party at the branch, on the day before my transfer, I had dinner with my father. He had lost quite a bit of weight since I last saw him. He wasn't suffering from any serious illness, but his aging worried me. Then, my father made a request, but I'll talk about that later. The next day, my first day at the headquarters, started with greeting rounds. I went through a number of departments throughout the head office and got to know everyone. Finally, though reluctantly, I went to greet Amy, who had become a department head. Well, you've come to headquarters. What can a high school grad from a single-parent family even do here? Come on, Amy, please go easy on me. Well, do your best, I suppose. Amy had become even more prickly over the nearly 10 years we hadn't met. Despite the struggles of working in a male-dominated company, looking down on others is not cool. I sighed. What bothered me about Amy was her tendency to belittle others based on things that were not of a person's nature, like being a high school grad or from a single-parent family. Amy didn't see who I really was. She didn't care of my 10 years of hard work and what I had learned in this company. Fortunately, I worked in a special department, so I didn't have to see Amy often, but whenever we met at meetings, she would find some way to prod at me. "Oh, Kevin, there you are. Did you even understand today's meeting, being a high school grad?" Yes, I did, obviously. Besides, I was the one who prepared today's meeting materials. "Kevin, are you still at headquarters? I thought you would have gone back to the branch by now, or perhaps unassigned to a subsidiary." "No, I came to headquarters for a mission. I wouldn't just go back to the branch so easily." I never talked back in reality, but I always had a retort in my mind. One day, I had to visit Amy's department for some work. "Emily, what is this translation? We can send such a document to our clients." "I'm sorry, Amy. It's my first time preparing a document in French." Amy was scolding a female employee in her department, making her kneel on the floor. "Amy, this is too much." I hurried over and helped the kneeling employee stand up. "Kneeling is not okay. Look, she's about to cry." When I reprimanded Amy, she snatched the documents I was about to hand her. "It's her incompetence that's the problem," she said angrily, tossing the documents onto her desk. "Thank you." The scolded employee thanked me, but Amy just returned to her desk without a glance at us. The rest of the department was working uneasily, watching Amy's mood. The atmosphere was far from pleasant. "Don't yell too much, okay?" I warned Amy, but she just shrugged her shoulders. It was about half a year into my days of running around the headquarters. I was called to the CEO's office and adjusted my tie, thinking the time has finally come. I did a full body check in the restroom, polished my shoes, took a deep breath, and headed to the CEO's office. When I opened the door, there was Amy, sitting arrogantly in a chair. "Amy, what are you doing here?" "Aha, Kevin, what brings you here?" "Well, I was called by the CEO." "What about you, Amy? By the way, how long are you going to be at the headquarters? You're just running around without a desk. A high school grad like you doesn't belong here." "No, the chair you are sitting in, that's my chair." "What? Are you talking nonsense? Have you gone crazy because you don't fit in here?" "No, I mean the chair you're sitting in, that's my chair, the executive vice president's chair. Can you move?" You're not the executive vice president. What are you talking about?" Just then, the CEO walked in. "Amy, what are you doing playing around here? Do you have business with Kevin, the executive vice president?" "Mr. Wilson, the CEO. Kevin is really the executive vice president. Not just the executive vice president from today. Kevin is the CEO." Mr. Wilson, the former CEO and now chairman, slowly said this. "Yes. I was transferred here half a year ago as an executive vice president. And today, I was called to the CEO's office to receive my appointment as CEO. Moreover, Mr. Wilson is my father. Although we have different last names due to my parents' divorce, he is undoubtedly my father. He started this company while my mother was pregnant with me. He even secretly set up the company and started attending college without consulting my mother. After I was born, he focused solely on work and college, neglecting family and parenting. My mother, frustrated by his lack of communication and involvement, filed for divorce. Since the divorce, my father has dedicated himself to work, but recently his health has been declining. Thankfully, no major illness has been found, but years of overworking have led to minor health issues. He decided it was time to step back and wanted to hand over his company to me. That's why I've been so busy at headquarters for the last 6 months, preparing to take over as CEO. I had always planned to eventually take over as CEO, so I was somewhat prepared. My initial assignment to the branch office was to ensure I was familiar with its operations before becoming CEO. "Amy, there should be a company-wide email about the announcement. Check it." A notification sound chimed. I prompted Amy to check her email. The email announced Mr. Wilson's resignation as CEO and his new role as chairman, my promotion from executive vice president to CEO, and also Amy's assignment to a subsidiary. Amy is indeed capable, but her attitude towards her subordinates has garnered poor reviews. Apart from making an employee kneel, there have been various complaints about her behavior. When I prompted Amy to read the email, she seemed to understand everything. That I was also the president's apprentice, working on internal investigations. That she had continued to belittle me. That she had yelled at her subordinate in front of me, the next CEO. She collapsed on the spot and couldn't move for a while. Then, a woman's voice said, "Sorry I'm late." And in came Emily. She was the female employee Amy had scolded into kneeling the other day. Emily had worked for one of our client companies but resigned last month. Mr. Wilson, our CEO, had noticed her detailed attentiveness and clear documentation as a sales assistant and had hunted her when she decided to quit. Having lost her parents early, Emily had been involved in various jobs since graduating middle school. She was working at a restaurant when she was headhunted by her previous company's president. Despite excelling in secretarial and reception duties, and as a sales assistant, rumors circulated that she might be the president's mistress due to the nature of her recruitment. Nevertheless, she bravely handled her tasks until she was falsely accused of misconduct and resigned last month, fed up. Emily was apprehensive about joining our company, worried about facing hostility again, but Mr. Wilson persuaded her, promising a better experience. Emily was set to become my secretary starting today. Amy, still sitting on the floor, glared at Emily, and then left the office. It must have been hard for her, but her harsh treatment of subordinates as a manager warranted her transfer. She didn't make any excuses, likely understanding her own mistakes. Years passed since I became the CEO and my father became the chairman. Initially, I was anxious about how things would go, but thanks to my father, Emily, and our employees' support, we've managed to maintain our performance. It's not just about maintaining, but I'd like to improve our performance. However, sustaining it for the first few years is an achievement worth acknowledging. Emily has been a great help in her secretarial duties. Emily's knack for anticipating needs, evident from how she was favored by her previous CEO, is now indispensable for me. I hardly manage business trips without her. Speaking of which, I recalled Amy from the subsidiary. Initially, she struggled with a bad reputation there too, but eventually, her reputation began to improve. Curious about how she had changed, I called her back. To my surprise, she had transformed into a pleasant woman, as if a burden had been lifted off her. The condescending attitude and patronizing manner that had marred her charm were completely gone. Moreover, her sharp intellect, honed at Harvard, remained intact. She started receiving praise from colleagues and no longer attracted any negative feedback. Feeling confident about her transformation, I promoted her to a department manager. Some time after her promotion, I randomly encountered her at a diner during lunch break. "Mr. Johnson," instead of being resentful, Amy graciously offered me a seat opposite her. "Amy, you've really improved at work. Everyone is grateful." "No, I'm embarrassed. How can I apologize for my disrespect towards you?" "No need to apologize. Who you are now is what matters." "I was always trying too hard. I know it sounds like an excuse, but my mother was a high school graduate. She was half Mexican, working in a pub where she met my father and got married. My father always ridiculed her for her education. Watching that, I vowed not to become like my mother. I thought not going to college was the worst thing. Desperate to add to my educational qualifications, I studied hard and got into Harvard, but I was an underachiever there, which only made me more obsessed with my education. Here, even as an underachiever, graduating from Harvard earned me admiration, which I enjoyed." Amy started talking as I settled down, eating my lunch and listening quietly. "I'm grateful you sent me to the subsidiary. My mother, living near it, had separated from my dad after I graduated. While at the subsidiary, I lived with my mother. She hadn't divorced but had a relieved expression in separating from my dad. I asked her things I never could before, like if she regretted not going to college or not wanting more education. She said she had no regrets. She enjoys her translation work now, even without a college degree. In fact, she regretted marrying my dad, who belittled her for her education." Amy continued to talk, even as her lunch cooled. "I might have been a bit envious of you. I saw my mother being ridiculed and got too caught up in education. Despite struggling at Harvard, which I had worked so hard to get into, I couldn't leave because of its prestige and finally graduated. Yet you, despite being so capable, didn't go to college and even considered online courses when work settled down, which seemed so relaxed to me. I couldn't understand it. It was frustrating and enviable. That's why I maintained such a rude attitude towards you. Looking back, it seems nonsensical and unjust, but back then, I was desperate to uphold myself. Education was everything, and I couldn't comprehend someone like you who thought differently. I'm truly sorry for that." "Look at me," I said. Amy was crying. "I had no idea you had such a traumatic experience, Amy. I always thought you walked a sunny path of elite success." Before I knew it, I was engrossed in Amy's story, setting aside my meal. It's true that appearances can be deceiving, and I felt sorry for Amy, who had been so constrained by her education. The changed Amy diligently accumulated achievements for the company and carefully nurtured her subordinates. Recognizing her efforts, I promoted her from department manager to executive vice president. She's now an indispensable member of the team for me. Of course, Emily is also working hard as my secretary. She's attentive, meticulous in her work, and I rely heavily on her. Now, Amy and Emily occasionally clash over work strategies, but they generally maintain a good relationship. After learning that people tend to speak their minds more freely during meals, I make a point of having lunch with not just Amy, but also Emily. My father, now the chairman, teases me saying, "You sure are popular with the ladies, but it's not about that. It's purely about understanding my subordinates' honest opinions to facilitate smooth operations." Speaking of which, my parents have been dining together more often since I transferred to the headquarters. My mother initially complained, "What now, after all this time?" But she seems fulfilled knowing my father has always cared for us, and my appointment as CEO perhaps filled a void for her. Lately, she's even started saying, maybe I could remarry that man again. As for myself, I've decided to start attending university through online program this spring. Now that I'm more accustomed to the role of CEO and clearly see my areas for improvement, I believe university will be very rewarding. Hearing this, Emily asked if she could also enroll in an online high school course. My answer was, of course, yes. Age doesn't matter when it comes to learning. There's always a time in everyone's life when it's the right moment to learn. For Emily and me, that time is now. I jokingly asked Amy, "Why don't you go back to college too?" She declined, saying, "I don't want to lose Harvard as my final alma mater. But if she ever wants to learn more, I think she should go back to college, even as a non-degree student. We can all educate ourselves at any age. It's about receiving education when it's needed." With these thoughts, I'm about to welcome my first spring as a university freshman.